Federal retirement benefits. Quit overlooking this unchecked box. It's costing you $400 a month. There exists a single checkbox on a retirement income form that the typical retiree completes once, then disregards permanently, and never gives a second thought. And for countless Americans now drawing retirement income payments, that unmarked box, or that incorrectly marked box, is quietly cutting their monthly income by $200, $300, or frequently exceeding $400 every single month. Not due to a policy modification, not due to recently enacted legislation, due to a choice they made years back on a form they didn't comprehend, a choice the Retirement Administration body has no legal responsibility to reconsider for them, and a choice that develops into hundreds of thousands of dollars of missing funds throughout their lifetime. The form is the W-4V. The box governs income tax removal from your retirement check. And the problem is not always the one you believe. Certain retirees are removing tax they don't owe. Others are removing at a percentage set during their earning period that has zero connection to their current tax obligation. And a minority yet noteworthy segment is removing nothing and gathering a tax bill they don't anticipate until April. All three categories are losing funds. All three have a solution readily available right now that requires one form and one postage envelope. If you're brand new to this platform, hit subscribe immediately. Professor Kyle Pomamello discusses the retirement income guidelines, tax approaches, and federal initiatives that have immediate influence on older adults and those who've stopped working each week. Completely free, straightforward language, no services being promoted. Subscribe to make sure you never skip a video that could increase your monthly benefit. Before proceeding further, I need to speak to two sets of people who are currently thinking this content does not concern them. And both of them are mistaken. The first set is the retiree who has income tax removed from their retirement check and presumes the removal sum is accurate because the Retirement Administration body instituted it. That presumption is the priciest one in this presentation. The Retirement Administration did not establish your removal sum. You did on a form you finished years back, potentially at a point when your earnings were entirely different, when you were still employed, when your tax position looked completely distinct from what it looks like now. The Retirement Administration follows whatever removal direction you supplied them and maintains it indefinitely until you alter it. They do not study your tax documentation. They do not verify whether the sum you are removing corresponds to what you genuinely owe. They implement your initial direction every month, year in and year out, regardless of whether it remains appropriate. The second set is the retiree who has zero removal and is imagining they are already getting their complete check. That is somewhat accurate. But zero removal does not indicate zero tax obligation. If your collective earnings, your retirement income, your pension, your retirement account distributions, your stock gains pushes your combined income past the taxable point, you must pay tax on as much as 85% of your retirement benefit, irrespective of whether you removed anything. The retirees with zero removal who are responsible for tax are not keeping their complete check. They are postponing a statement to April that shows up with extra charges and potentially a fine for insufficient payment. Both sets have a version of this circumstance. Both sets have the equivalent solution. Remain with me. So for what reason does the Retirement Administration body not bring this to your notice? The procedure is uncomplicated. The Retirement Administration oversees payment distribution. It does not supervise tax obligations. Those are two distinct federal entities with two distinct purposes and two distinct record systems that do not instantly transfer information to each other. The Retirement Administration sends your check depending on your payment calculation and your removal direction. The Revenue Department gets your tax documentation and establishes what you were responsible for. Neither body is accountable for telling you that the sum you removed has no correspondence to the sum you are actually responsible for. And here's what renders this systematically burdensome rather than just occasionally annoying. The W-4V form presents 4 removal percentage choices: 7%, 10%, 12%, or 22% of your monthly benefit. Majority of retirees who finished this form opted for one of the center choices, 10 or 12%, because those percentages appeared fitting at the moment. Fitting at the moment is distinct from fitting right now. A retiree whose collective earnings has decreased substantially since stopping work, who right now meets the requirements for the fresh retiree standard reduction, and whose combined income falls beneath the retirement income taxation limit, is removing tax on an obligation that is no longer present. The authority is keeping their funds. It makes zero income. It surfaces in April as a recovery they consider a bonus when it was their funds all along. Every month that removal direction persists, unmodified, is one additional month of needless movement from your funds to the national government. The Retirement Administration is not going to recommend you discontinue. The Revenue Department is not going to deliver a notice indicating you over-removed. The modification has to come from you, and it commences with comprehending precisely what your proper removal must be. My designation is Professor Kyle Pomamello. I have invested decades examining the tax treatment of retirement income benefits and the connection between retirement funds, income tax removal, and the yearly tax accounting needs of American older adults. The circumstance I find most frequently heartbreaking is the retiree who has been removing 10% from their retirement check for 15 years, a choice they made at 62, determined by their earnings at 62, who is currently 77, whose earnings is substantially reduced, who meets the requirements for cuts they never submitted, and who has been transmitting the national government between $150 and $400 per month for years past any real tax obligation. That cash is not permanently gone. It shows up as a recovery, but the recovery shows up 12 months behind, makes zero income, and was never the government's cash to possess. The modification takes one form. Majority of retirees never make it because nobody ever clarifies that the initial direction was not unchangeable. That is what this presentation addresses. Here is specifically what we are discussing in the subsequent 20 minutes. I am going to describe the retirement income tax removal procedure, how the W-4V operates, what each removal percentage genuinely indicates in monetary figures, and how to establish the proper percentage for your particular earning situation. Subsequently, I am going to review the combined earnings equation, the computation that establishes whether any of your retirement income is responsible for taxation at all. Because for a considerable group of retirees viewing this presentation, the proper removal percentage is zero. Subsequently, I am going to illustrate you 2 extra measures that correspond immediately with your retirement income tax obligation and that can minimize or remove it fully through permitted variations obtainable right now. Everything is obtainable on revenue.gov and retirementadmin.gov. Every form code I point out you can retrieve at zero expense. Initial section, the W-4V, what it constitutes, what it governs, and for what reason your existing percentage is likely inaccurate. Division 8, dispel the misunderstanding. The most common misunderstanding regarding retirement. That impression is inaccurate. Whether any component of your retirement income is federally responsible for taxation is determined entirely by a computation involving your different earnings. And for a considerable fraction of retirees, the outcome of that computation is zero responsible retirement income. Division. Get Form Retirement 44 from retirementadministration.gov. Examine the listing of authorized circumstance modifications on Section 2. If you departed employment within the preceding couple of years, decreased your employment hours, misplaced a pension, or went through any different authorized circumstance that dropped your earnings, Finish the form with your present earnings projection and connect the mandatory verification. Forward it to your Community Retirement Administration workplace individually or by confirmed mail. Handling normally requires 30 to 90 days. The payment reduction pertains moving forward from the period the form is refined. Each month you postpone is a month of overspending that cannot be recovered retroactively. Everything I simply went through pertains to each retiree obtaining retirement income despite earnings category. The W-4V modification is obtainable to everybody. The combined earnings computation is vital for everybody. The Retirement 44 pertains distinctly to high earnings retirees whose healthcare payments incorporate an IRMA supplementary amount. What I am about to include is for the retiree who desires to go past correcting their removal and genuinely decrease the underlying tax obligation on their retirement income. Not merely fit the removal to the obligation, but officially decrease the obligation itself. If correcting your removal is adequate for currently, the opening 3 elements totally reviewed what you want. But if you desire to go farther, these following couple of elements focus on methods that minimize the combined income computation immediately. Extra element, the post-retirement funds switching period that minimizes upcoming retirement income taxation. The combined earnings equation that establishes retirement income responsibility contains standard post-retirement funds distributions in full. Every portion you distribute from a standard post-retirement funds contributes a portion to your combined income figure, moving more of your retirement income into the responsible level or further into the 85% level. A retiree obtaining $20,000 per year from a standard post-retirement fund is putting $20,000 to the combined income figure that establishes the way much of their retirement income is penalized. Roth post-retirement funds distributions are distinct. Permitted Roth post-retirement funds dispersals do not get incorporated in gross earnings and do not get incorporated in the combined income computation. A retiree who switches standard post-retirement funds revenue to a Roth post-retirement fund throughout the decreased earnings ages quickly following departure from employment prior to retirement income starts or prior to obligatory minimum distributions start compensates earnings taxation on the changed sum at their present decreased level and completely eliminates those revenue from the combined income computation for any upcoming ages. The realistic result is this. A retiree who switches $150,000 from a standard post-retirement fund to a Roth during a 3-year span at a 12% genuine level compensates $18,000 in change taxation and completely reduces their yearly combined income by the quantity of upcoming distributions from that switched remainder. If those distributions might have been $15,000 per year, the modification reduces combined income by $15,000 per year going forward, potentially reducing the responsible component of retirement income from 85% to 50% or from 50% to nothing. The taxation reduction on retirement income by itself might recuperate the change expense within 5 to 7 ages. Extra element, the permitted good deed distribution that reduces combined income immediately for retirees 70 and a half or older who perform good deed contributions and maintain revenue in a standard post-retirement fund. The permitted good deed distribution discussed in a prior presentation on this network reduces combined income immediately instead of just offering a reduction. An ordinary good deed reduction reduces your responsible earnings following the combined income computation is total. It has zero impact on the combined income figure itself. A PGD, by distinction, eliminates the dispersed sum from your gross earnings entirely. It is not going to manifest on your tax documentation as earnings. Since it is not going to manifest as earnings, it is not going to participate in the combined income computation. A $10,000 PGD from a standard post-retirement fund reduces your gross earnings by $10,000. Reduces your combined income by $10,000 and might move the responsible component of your retirement income from one category to a reduced category or from a responsible category to nothing. For a retiree in the 85% combined income group whose retirement income payment is $2,000 per month, reducing the responsible component from 85 to 50% removes taxation on $8,400 per year of retirement income earnings at a 22% taxation level. That is $1,848 per year in taxation relief from a solo PGD. Furthermore, to the good deed reduction importance the contributor might have dropped by getting the ordinary reduction. Let me integrate everything with the sole conception that joins each aspect we went through currently. The Retirement Administration forwards your check depending on your payment computation and your removal direction. It does not examine your tax documentation. It does not verify whether your removal fits your obligation. It does not notify you when your combined income drops beneath the taxation limit. It carries out your opening direction each month till you shift it. The Revenue Department gets your documentation, determines what you were responsible for, and manages your recovery. But it does not reach out to the Retirement Administration on your side to propose you modify your removal. And healthcare computes your payment from couple of years old earnings details and persists requesting the greater amount till you file the Retirement 44 to activate a computation refresh. All of these processes acts in its personal path. Not one of them is fashioned to optimize your results. They are individually fashioned to perform their specific task. The optimization, the W4V modification, the combined income computation, the Retirement 44 transmission, the post-retirement funds switching period. The PGD plan has to derive from comprehension of how these methods work collectively and purposeful choices about how to arrange yourself inside them. Professor Kyle Pomamello's purpose for this network is regularly the identical. These guidelines occur in your advantage more often than the groups managing them is going to reveal. The sole factor separating you and an expanded monthly check is comprehending the mechanism sufficiently to employ it appropriately. You now have that comprehension. Execute on it previously one more month passes. Previously you finish this, do one aspect. Transfer this presentation to one individual in your community who is over 65 and obtaining retirement income. A relative, a companion, a person you see at gathering. It is irrelevant whether they are managing on a restricted earnings or obtaining an agreeable benefit beside a pension. Each retiree who filled out a W4V at each stage in the past and never refreshed it is virtually certainly removing the erroneous sum, possibly far greater than required or not sufficient. The individual you are reflecting on at present is quite possibly in that category. One chat initiated by this presentation might put $200 to $400 to their monthly check beginning following month. That is earnings they obtained. That is earnings that is theirs. And it is sitting in a governmental removal account making nothing since nobody ever informed them the opening form was not unalterable. That is what this network is in position to accomplish. In the following presentation, I am going to demonstrate you the healthcare form that reverses an IRMA supplementary amount returning 12 months. A form the majority of retirees is not going to file since they do not recognize retroactive relief is obtainable and that might recoup hundreds of portions in overspent payments in a solo transmission. I will see you next.